Don't do any of that.
You guys see okay back there?
Okay. So she's dental.
I don't think we've met. Oh, okay. Awesome.
Antivirus software.
Yes. That's why we live in Okay. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
I think I'm going to be able to reverse, but
You really got it.
Yeah, I'm gonna just give him up a second.
Yeah.
Just have to do it. Plastic might be good. For them.
That's funny.
Just be up there.
This is Dr. Elizabeth.
Hello.
These are the ladies that work
My
inside.
name's Katie. It's nice to meet you. Joanna.
I think we need a few more.
Thank you.
He's much better. He's like
I don't know if I ever met her, but I've been referring to her for 15 years. I mean,
I'm so excited you guys made it out. I'm glad you made it safe, right? Good evening, everyone. Hello. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you guys coming out tonight, away from your friends and family. My name's Ken Mallender. I'm the local Invisalign rep. I work for Line Technology. I represent the clear aligner side of the business, our scanners, our iTero scanners, and also our ExoCAD software, which you're going to be able to see today. I'm really excited to partner with Dr. Segal tonight because I come from the implant world. I used to be Dr. Lassen's rep 15 years ago for 3i, right? A long, long time ago. But we were able to work together with our specialists and our general dentists, right? A little cross-pollination, right? A little interdisciplinary, right? Work together to make it all work.
Rachel.
Rachel's in the back. Rachel's in the back? Okay. No worries. So I'm really excited to get together with Dr. Segal to get everyone to understand the latest and greatest in software, which is our Smile Architect. It's a smile design software. It really helps the patient understand the treatment plan and keeps it simple, predictable, right, and profitable for us. It's a really great gateway for them to visualize what's going to happen at the end of the day. But before Dr. Segal jumps into it, because I'm the local Invisalign rep, I wanted to introduce one of my doctors who I met a year ago, Dr. Syed Haider, and I wanted to just say a few words because when I walked into his practice a few years ago, he didn't have any patients in there. I kind of walked in and he was getting things set up with his office manager. And we talked through what could be possible, right? What could happen in his practice to generate that revenue. He's up to 75 Invisalign cases this year, which is $250,000 in profit, right? If it's okay if I'm sharing this, he's buying another practice, right? So there is a pathway for that by investing in the technology. And if you're interested in talking to me about that, I'd love to come in and talk to your teams about that. But if you don't mind saying a few quick words before Dr. Segal gets into his piece, that'd be great. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? Yeah, I mean, Ken, I think it asked me a few weeks ago to just say a few words about at least like my journey over the last couple of years or a year and a half or so. So I was a new practice owner and I kind of ran into Ken as he walked into the office and we talked about some possibilities with Invisalign and what we could achieve. Prior to that, I was an associate for about 2.5, 3 years and didn't have access to an iTero or an Invisalign scanner. So I was doing like impressions and just never quite worked out. Impressions would get rejected and things, just refinements would be difficult. And I think like the big thing was that I just didn't have the clinical confidence to tell patients that, yes, this is possible or this is treatable or not. It was just a lot of, just a lack of confidence. So having that practice and then being able to invest in the iTero really changed everything because we were able to like scan patients and see the immediate kind of before and after. So the most powerful thing that we got to use was the Invisalign outcome simulator, which I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with, but if you're not, it's basically, you take a 3D scan on somebody and Invisalign's outcome simulator will put out a before and an after right there in front of the patient. So it's great for the patient to see, but it's also really good for the doctor to see who's young and trying to figure things out and trying to visualize, hey, what will be the end result of this treatment if everything goes ideally. And that really helped me kind of figure out if this is a case I want to do or if this is a case I want to refer. And so that along with having the scanner and then integrating it into our hygiene checks, along with a lot of our consults, really helped us kind of, ramp up the numbers. I obviously did a whole bunch of CE and courses and whatnot and kind of getting the fundamentals there besides just like the initial Invisalign training. But yeah, and it's been really good. We've had really good success with it. And I think more than anything else, we were just talking about this, is it's not about like just doing a certain number of cases or being in a certain tier. Obviously, those are great things, but one of the biggest things that's changed for me is the way I am treatment planning other things besides Invisalign. So I'll do like 2 quick examples of that. One example is a patient that came and saw me when I had first purchased the practice like a year and a half ago for a veneer consult. And she had previously had veneers and she just didn't like the fact that she could see the margins of where the veneers were ending because her gums had receded. And I said, yeah, for sure, we can do some new veneers for you, of course, right? Why not? But what I didn't really consider at that time was how deep her bite was and how retroclined her anteriors were and how narrow her arch was and all these things and why there was so much recession to begin with in such a short amount of time. So long story short, she didn't go through with the veneers at the time. She came back recently and said, oh, you know what, I want to have that conversation again about the veneers. And I look at her now and I'm like, there's no way I'm doing veneers on you. We got to do Invisalign first. We got to address your bite first. We got to proclinate these upper anteriors. We got to get rid of the crown. We got to get rid of the deep bite, intrude the lower anterior. All these things to get the bite in a better position before we do the veneers. And you would have thought that this patient would be like, wait a second, I have to pay for the veneers and for the Invisalign. Like, I'm not doing this. She's all up for it. It's like, it just makes sense when you can present things in a more comprehensive way and patients get it. And that, I feel like that just makes me a better dentist. So, and I don't think I would have had that vision maybe a couple years ago. The second example would be just, I'm also in the process of doing COIS training. And a lot of what you learn at COIS is like occlusion and function, and not everyone's a grinder. Like, not everyone that has wear is grinding, right? There's other functional issues there. And a lot of times the treatment for those functional issues is actually ortho. Even if they're adults, even if they have really good straight teeth, you can still find things that can be improved. And so that's been like one other really big avenue for trying to address like occlusal issues with Invisalign as well. So all of that, you know, I would say with like, yeah, without the tools and the sort of the resources available with Invisalign, I don't think it would have been possible. So yeah, any way I can help them. That's why I'm, you know, I was like, yeah, for sure, I'll talk a few minutes, and yeah, if anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, I'm all ears. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Before I start, Dr. I was going to mention one more thing. You want to say
Sure.
something?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, as we talk about interdisciplinary care and we hear about all of these topics, one concept that has really helped us collaborate really with ease and with a great amount of efficiency for our patients are the SPEAR study groups that we're part of. So how many of you are involved with a SPEAR study group right now? Awesome. So I've worked with Lauren before. She's been part of our group. You could say a few words if you want, but I think it's such a beautiful way to really work together, talk about specific cases. It builds a lot of rapport. It's so nice to tell my patients, oh, I'm going to see your doctor in 3 weeks in my office. So it builds a lot of confidence between the doctor, patient, and the team in general. And then I guess we shoot it out, right? Any questions we have, it's very informal. You can bring cases. We go over actual SPEAR topics where they're professionals talking about all different cases from implants all the way to enclosed teeth. So if you are interested, we do have one at our practice. Please feel free to contact us. You could just call the number you called for the seminar, and they'll give you my number.
Cool.
Typically it's Thursdays.
Thank you, Dr. Iyer.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you, Dr. Hayter, for speaking to the group. That leads right into what I'm going to talk to you about today. This is Smile Architect is like the outcome simulator on steroids. So you're going to love that. It's going to be like, it's just going to take it to the next level. Thank you, Ken, for hosting this or sponsoring this event. I really appreciate you treating everybody. I hope you guys like the food and the sangria, because you can thank Ken for that. Do we have any more chairs in case somebody comes in late, or are we done? All right, lock the door. Nobody else coming in. So has anybody here used Smile Architect yet? So now nobody's done. It is Invisalign's newest technology. And it is geared, you know, a lot of it is geared, they put it out for restorative dentists, but you'll see that one of the reasons Dr. Iyer and I took it on is because we see that the more you guys are educated in terms of what is possible, the more you realize, kind of like Dr. Haydar's example, is that when that patient first came to him, he didn't realize that she was a terrible candidate for just doing veneers from the back, right from the start. And only after he started doing more ortho did he realize that that would have made his restorative look that much better. That's what we're going to show you today. So many examples of where if you try to do restorative on its own, it's not going to look nearly as good as it could if you set the case up properly. So what is Smile Architect? It's a ortho-restorative treatment planning software. So it allows us to diagnose treatment plan on the patient's face using the ClinCheck and then putting restorative, whether it's crowns or veneers, in the ClinCheck and then pressing a button that then allows you to see what it will actually look like in the patient's face. It's really groundbreaking technology. And today we're going to talk about 3 benefits of Invisalign Smile Architect. One is it's going to help the quality of all your cases. So when you're able to visualize like how you can take a patient like this that just came to us a couple of weeks ago, and she got into an accident and she was literally crying in her chair, in our chair, because she was like almost traumatized of what happened to her. She had a nice smile, and then we showed her like what it's going to look like when we're done. And when we showed her this, she was tearing for different reasons, just because she could not believe that we could do that for her. So one, it's going to improve your quality. You could start adding crowns anywhere, like she's missing teeth in the back as well. And just make sure everything's proportioned out before you even start the treatment. So that really allows you to really set the case up nicely for your restorative. We'll talk about later how you can even change the opacity of the crowns so that you can see what the preps might look like under. It will show you how much tooth structure you actually have to remove or add, or how much porcelain you have to add. The other thing that Smile Architect does is it improves the communication with the interdisciplinary team. I can tell you, like when we first started, when we had big interdisciplinary cases, we used to try to invite all the specialists, whether it was pedo, perio, oral surgeons, and everybody would be staring at this patient, and the patient would be terrified, right? That's the way it used to be. But we don't need to do that anymore, because this is, once we have this online, we can send it to right over the internet, and everybody can make their decisions and decide what's best for the patient without having to stare down their throat. So here, this is probably a common example that you might see in your office. Here's a case I finished, wide area for the upper right tooth, for tooth number 7. It's restored, but because of the space of it, you can see it's a little wide. So definitely a little bit wider than ideal. And then there's the opposite situation where you have what looks like, that we thought it might be ideal at the end, but then you can see once the temporary goes in, it's a lot smaller than it should be, and this is what it looks like. So Smile Architect allows us to avoid this kind of situation by better communication with the restorative dentist before we get to the point. See, what happens when you guys already get the patient, when they're already done with treatment and the space is too small like this, what are you going to do? Are you going to like badmouth the orthodontist? I mean, you should, but it feels a little weird to then tell the patient the orthodontist screwed up. So that avoids that situation from the get-go. But this is probably the biggest part, and it's demonstrating value. And Dr. Hayter, you talked about the patient that she ended up going through the treatment, despite the fact that it involved a lot more, ortho, a lot more cost. Smile Architect allows us to demonstrate value so that the patient agrees to treatment, more so than ever before. Because before we used to do the wax setups, the clean checks then were the next stage, but nothing compares to being able to see the teeth in the patient's face or see the smile in the patient's face. So right now, here's that police officer to move their car, Dr. Iyer.
No problem.
So here's what I see often, like these templates that are done on the teeth to show the patient where the restoration should be. And you can see on the left, they do these virtual bondings before they touch the patient. I mean, this is better than the wax setup, but still not ideal. This doesn't move the needle. This is digital, wax setups, which is better. But again, the patient's not smiling naturally. So even though the teeth, it's a step up, it's still a little weird. It's hard to convince the patient. Now, this is what I grew up on, doing these wax setups. We had to build this out of wax. Dr. Logan or Dr. Dan, you guys probably don't even know what this is, right? Because some of the young doctors, they have no idea. Dr. Bergman, was this around your time? Oh, yeah. So we had to carve these teeth out of wax. And I got to tell you, my wax setups looked like anything but teeth. And I remember I'd go home with my wax setup and I'd show like my family and friends the wax setup, and they encouraged me to go to law school. But I know not to listen to just any one person's opinion. Plus, what does my mom know about dentistry? But my mom does know a lot about dentistry because she is a prosthodontist. And so she had a really big interdisciplinary practice. Her whole practice was all complex cases. And she used to have orthodontists show up at her office with these models, and they would show the before, and they show the after. And I remember saying to my mom when this orthodontist came in, I was like, wow, he's such an amazing orthodontist. And my mom would say to me, well, what makes you think he's a good orthodontist? And she said, and I said, because these teeth are perfect. And my mom would say, there's no face attached to those models. So what if I told you that those models fit this face? What does it matter how perfect those teeth are on those models if that's the way she smiles? Or the opposite, what if those models or those straight teeth were on this face? So you could do the most perfect veneers, those veneers look really nice on the after, but if it fit that face, it still wouldn't look ideal. So they've done studies, and up to 96% of survey dentists have agreed that improving the pre-restorative tooth position can benefit the patient's aesthetics and function before they do restorative. But yet, despite that, you'd be shocked at how few doctors actually offer pre-restorative tooth positioning or offer interdisciplinary treatment before they're doing the restorative, just like what happened to you, Dr. Hayter, early on. So we belong, Dr. Ari and I belong to Spear Study Club, and we've gone there in Arizona. And I remember Frank Spear pulled the audience, and he asked the audience, like, if you had a severe case like this that needed perio and surgery and implants and the whole gamut, when that patient comes in for the initial consult, what percentage of you guys would give that patient the ideal treatment plan on day one? And what do you think what percent do you think it was of doctors that give that patient the ideal treatment plan on the first day? Anybody want to throw out a guess? Give me like from 1 to 100%, like would they tell them, would 100% give them everything? Exactly, from 2 to 10%, it was actually 5%. So great job. So 5%, why do you think there's a hesitation to offer interdisciplinary treatment to the patient? Why is it only 5%? Now, by the way, this is an interdisciplinary study club where everybody's doing interdisciplinary treatment, and yet only 5% are going to tell the patient everything they need at the first visit.
It's expensive. Because insurance won't cover it.
Right, expense, insurance. So what are you afraid of? What's going to happen?
Rejection.
What's that?
Rejection.
Exactly. You're going to give this patient the ideal treatment plan. You're going to tell them that you need perio, surgery, maybe ortho. It's going to cost $40,000, and the patient's going to look at you like, right? So we'll talk about how we deal with that as well. And there's nothing better to demonstrate value than Smile Architect. So all it involves is you taking a wide smile photo using your cell phone, and then you get the whole series of photos, and you lay it over. You actually merge it with the iTero scanner, and that creates the ClinCheck digital visualization. Now, I don't think you need an iTero scanner. You can have any scanner, right? I'm pretty sure there's certain scanners, not just iTero, that allow you to do this.
You can do that in the software with an STL file.
Right, as long as you have an STL file. So, but you just need a digital scanner. In terms of anybody who's done ClinChecks, there's only 3 buttons on Smile Architect that are different than the normal ClinCheck. So Dr. Hayter, those only the smile button, the restorative button, and the tooth mask button, which we'll go over, everything else is the same as any ClinCheck. Yeah. And how much do you think they charge you to use a Smile Architect? The answer is 0. So you don't pay anything to be able to use this. So you can see this is an example of where they had somebody with a missing tooth, and then you could add the tooth, you can add not only teeth, but then you could reshape the crown. So you can have let me see if I can make that a little out of focus. Let's see if I can fix that. So you can have average, round, square, triangle crowns. Once you reshape it, then you can also narrow it or change the whole size of it. You can move the crowns anywhere around in the patient's face. You can rotate them. You can move them up, down, torque the crowns, whatever you need to do to put them in the right angulation so that it looks good in the patient's face. You can align the gingival margins. And so if somebody's really dummy, you can improve those margins as well. And you can change the opacity so you can see how much tooth structure is under those crowns, how much you have to prep if you do pre-restorative ortho or if you don't. And there's a heat map. So that heat map shows you, like you can see on the bottom there, the more enamel you remove, it turns red. And if you're adding porcelain, it's blue. So this gives you a good idea and also educates the patient what happens, because nobody wants to do ortho, especially adults. Some our kids do, but adults don't want. No adult has ever told me he's dying to do ortho. But if they understand the ramifications, then they're more likely to agree to treatment. So let me just give you several examples where Smile Architect would be beneficial in terms of showing a patient where they could benefit. Let's start with Smile Arch. Smile Arch, this is definition, curvature of the maxillary premolars, cuspids, incisors in relation to the curvature of the lower lip on dynamic smile. This is the one on the left is the one that we like, the consonant. Flat is not ideal, and then reverse is definitely not what we want. So Fantasia Barrino, she's a singer. She had a reverse smile arc. That's why she sought out orthodontic treatment. Reese is very pretty, but she's got a flat smile arc, and you can see the consonant smile arc. This is what we're striving for. So on a patient, here's a patient that came in, and see that's Kim. So Kim comes in to see us, and we can put these templates on her face, and then we can show. Here's what Invisalign spits out. So I will tell you, we still have to be the doctors. Invisalign is not going to give you the ideal outcome. We look at that. I look at that, and it looks very flat to me. But then I can manipulate it and move it around. So I can take those teeth. I can move the templates, move the teeth down to where I want them. And see, look on the right side, I move them down more. Then I press a button, and it shows it in the face. And then so these might be a little too big. I'll see if I want them a little smaller. But look at the difference between this versus where they had it. Smile arc is a concept that is hard for patients to understand, but this makes it much easier. I don't think to see a smile arc in their own face really speaks a thousand words. Here's an example of a patient that I took right off the website from a doctor's office where he was showing off his work. Yes, he did straighten those lower teeth. This is not an ideal smile arc. And the sad thing is, I don't know that this patient even knows that things could have been better for her. And interestingly enough, there's a study that came out from a doctor in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, that actually showed that 33%, this was a landmark study, 33% of patients that undergo treatment look worse than they did when they started. 33% look less natural. It was a huge study that showed that. So what do I mean by less natural? So here's a patient that started like this. The mom took him to an orthodontist. The teeth were, the canines were a little bit out, but she liked his smile. She said he had a cute smile. He had orthodontic treatment done. She's in our office a week later saying, I know his teeth are straight, but I liked his smile better than when he started because he was one of the 33%. What do I mean by less natural? Notice he had a pretty good smile arc. Here's him now. You see the difference? Flat, you could put everything on a ruler and it'll fit on one line. So in our Spear Study Club, we always talk about aesthetics first, and then we work our way down into function, structure, biology. That doesn't mean that we don't treat perio first or cavities first. When we treatment plan, we work our way down from aesthetics down to biology, but when we treatment sequence, of course we're doing the perio first or the cavities before we get to the aesthetics. But it's important that when you treatment plan, you always start with aesthetics first, and then everything will fall into place. And we could talk about examples. I give a whole different lecture, and I challenge the audience to give me one example where when you treatment plan with aesthetics first, it throws the bite off. It should never. But the opposite is true. If you always treat with a bite first and you don't pay attention to aesthetics, you can completely destroy somebody's cosmetics, even if their bite is good. The opposite is usually not true, and we can go over examples of that later. So again, sequencing, of course we do the perio first. The only exception now is airway. Airways become big. That's a whole different lecture, which we're not going to talk about today. But airway is the only thing that can come in front of aesthetics, because if you can't breathe, it doesn't matter how good you look. So we're dealing with that. Now, when we talk about being natural, it's the same thing like when a plastic surgeon does a case and you should never be able to tell that you've had treatment done. And often I tell our patients, like, we don't want you to look like you had treatment. We want you to look like you were born with that gorgeous smile. So where do we start? This is Mike. He comes to us from Maryland. First thing we do is we identify the correct incisal position. So where you can see he was concerned about the wear on those teeth, and his dentist that saw him actually went to one of my lectures and down south. And so she said, rather than me do veneers, why don't you get the ortho done first, because there's a couple things I need to do before we do veneers. So first thing we do is we put those proportions on. We see where the teeth should be laying in his face. We look at the gingival margins. We notice how one gingival margin is up higher than the other. So if she was to do restorative, she would have to do crown lengthening to line those gums. Now, we can show you, like if on the right side, see how I bring that canine down? So if we just strain him out without without restorative, look at his smile. See how that demonstrates? Because he asked me, he's like, why do I need veneers? Can't you just strain my teeth? I get that all the time. I finally have an answer with this technology to show patients that ortho by itself will not give you a nice outcome. And if anything, he would be one of the 33%. How often have you guys had a patient that needed restorative, you send them to the orthodontist and they're like, okay, we're done, right? So if they had this type of technology to understand where the shortcomings are of just straining teeth and not having ideal proportion restorations, it would definitely change things. So now, if we're gonna line the gums, he's gonna look worse for a little bit, but it's important for him to know that because we're lining the gums to set him up for restorative. And then once we put the restorative, once we line the gums, look how much better this looks compared to where he was before. We can identify the arch width. He's a little narrow, so we can broaden him and then it shows it in his face. This is another more extreme example of a patient that we had to broaden. You can see how on the right we broaden it, on the left it shows it in her face. Sometimes, when would we do restorations without ortho? I guess if you had a patient that was not too narrow and the crowns were leaning in, you'd have a better emergence profile if you wanted to put porcelain on there, as opposed to teeth that are already flared out, or even normal. Those are not ideal. Here's a patient that was a little too tipped in, so she'd have the combination. And see if you can tell in her face.
Wow.
Makes a difference, right? So, and then we're going to identify the occlusal. So occlusion, just because we start with cosmetics first, I'm not saying that cosmetics is more important than occlusion. I'm just saying that the sequence, in order to have an ideal occlusion, you have to look at it in that order. So occlusion to us is just as important as everything else. Oops, sorry about that. All right, so he had the teeth. Mike had his gums aligned, and here's before the restorative. So right now he's not looking too good, but he was prepared because of the software, prepared him for this type of situation. Here's the temps. You can see how much happier he is with these temps. And I'm telling you, he's giggly now because he had recently gotten divorced and he was on social media a lot. And the studies show that the likelihood of attracting a possible mate on a dating site based on a picture alone, 55%. So Jeff is, he's really happy right now. But here's the one that really got me. Would consider not going on a second date with someone who 38% was from misaligned teeth. They'd rather you live with your parents than have misaligned teeth. And it's funny, Jeff, Mike sends me his these texts from Baltimore. And they all are like, by the way, you have a beautiful smile. Happy New Year. You have a great smile. So this is what I get all day long. Speaking of smile, yours is fantastic. Thank you so much. You truly do have the most gorgeous smile. So yeah, this is what we get. But before, he might have been a swipe left. And now he's a like. So I don't even know about the swipes. Like the staff told me about. Logan, you probably know about this stuff, right? Dan? No, I don't. All right, so for the pediatric dentist, I will tell you this is not just about adult dentistry, because a lot of times if you don't set the foundation at this age, it is going to affect their smile arc when they're 20s, 30s, 40s. So for example, this patient had a reverse smile arc, and as we're aligning the gums, we're thinking about her future. She's too young to have veneers, but we can already set the stage. So again, this is, to me, looks flat. We can reposition the teeth to make it look a little bit more ideal. For now, she could only have bonding. Now, she's not done, but you can see the foundation is there. When she does have her veneers, her smile arc will look good, as opposed to before if we didn't address that smile arc. So we're looking at that at a really young age. Tooth proportions. If we try to fit too much porcelain into a tight space, you lose your incisal spacing, your papillas. So everything looks boxy when you try to squeeze too much porcelain into a small space, kind of like this. So here's Karen. She comes to see us. She just wanted veneers. And I would say that 90% of dentists might do veneers on her case if they say no to ortho. She's very crowded. And then we could show her what it would look like if we tried to fit all of that in to that tight space. it would look unnatural, something like this. In her face, it would look like that. So again, really tight, not ideal. Also, look how much tooth structure would have to be removed in order to fit all that porcelain to keep it aligned in her face. So more than 2 millimeters of enamel in multiple areas. Instead, she agreed to have us straighten the teeth first. And then she saw her dentist for bonding. This wasn't even veneers. She wanted to stay conservative. This is just bonding. But notice how now she's got nice papillas, normal connector lengths in her crowns. Definitely not the outcome that would have happened if they tried to stuff all that porcelain into a tight space. Here's the opposite situation where we have trying to squeeze too much, or trying to fit too much into a big space, and the teeth look very boxy. So this is Jim. He came to see us, and he wanted nothing. He was hoping just to do restorative, and the restorative dentist said, "Why don't you see, Dr. Segal and see if we could help you out a little bit." So when I told him that he needed ortho first, he looked at me like, "Are you crazy?" He was not happy. But when we're trying to get ideal proportions, we know that if we try to fit everything into that space, let me show you. So this would be ideal, but if we try to do it without moving the teeth together, it would look like this, really boxy to fit everything in there. So he understood when we explained to him, and then he let us position the teeth ideally first. Here's the crowns in place, before, after ortho, before restorative, after restorative, before and after. Before, he was really pissed, and now he's like super confident. So, completely different person, right? It doesn't even look like the same person. You often get cases, I know the peds often get cases where they got small laterals, and I just want to show you, we see this often where they don't align the gingival margins prior to doing bonding of the upper laterals. And it might look okay, but once you look at the whole picture, you see how unnatural that looks in her face? As opposed to, if we use Smile Architect, we can show them what it would look like if we straighten the teeth without restorative. See the gum situation? If we put restorative on there, it still doesn't look ideal. So given that, what if we move the teeth first, align the gingival margins, and then put the restorative on there? That is a far better finish, and the patients get it when they see it in their own face. So here's her before the restorative. And that's a hard thing to do to do veneers on just upper laterals. Like, it's a difficult thing. It's almost, almost as difficult as like a central. But here's before, and then in place, before, after. Here's a pedo, same thing, position everything into ideal position, and then we have like a little celebration for them when they're done with treatment. We roll down the red carpet. So once you're happy with the restorations, you can actually export it in an STL file and send it to the lab. So you can play around with these restorations. The ones that you might see me doing are not going to be as good as the ones you do. You're better at this than me. But with some training, and it's not, I spoke to Ken before, one of the concerns are it's not something you learn overnight. It's something that you have to put some time into learning. But once you do, it's very simple once you understand it. And then you can send it right over to the lab. So there's no guesswork. Gingival levels, so some of you, this is Cassie. She comes to us from Seattle. So gingival margins are off. She actually works for Amazon. She's got a pretty big position there. And we could show her what it would look like if we align the gums in her face. So here I'm just playing with it. First it was a little gummy, then I improved the smile arc a little bit. And she likes that. So we kind of decide together where she likes the restorative. And then she's ready for the restorative. So here's a funny story. This is Alexandra. She said to me that I want you to straighten my teeth or correct my overbite so I can look pretty for my new boyfriend. She's got a pretty deep overbite, yes. And she was a little gummy to begin with. So the boyfriend she was talking about, she was going to a Justin Bieber concert back when Justin Bieber was like a good boy. And she was in the concert, and so here's, I'm going to show you something. So I'll tell you, plays this song called One Less Lonely Girl, and he basically picks out one girl from the audience. There's 30,000 people here. Madison Square Garden, picks out one less lonely girl, and he does this every show. He picks out one girl from the audience. And so he picks Alexandra. Out of all the girls in the audience, she's the one picked. Can I spare you the rest of the song? Yeah. We don't want to hear it. But so we fixed her overbite for Justin, and she was looking good. And she's dating him now. No, I'm kidding. But that was her mom in the audience videotaping, and she was just like in shock, and she sent me that video. I thought it was pretty funny. So my daughter back then, when she was 8 years old, is Alexa, and all she wanted for her birthday was a Justin Bieber book. So we got her the Justin Bieber book, and I just thought it was funny. I was looking over her shoulder, and there's Alexandra. So let me tell you about this case is going to upset you guys a little bit, because you're going to see what damage we can do to patients when we're not taking the face into account. So this is Mary and Marcus. They're twins. And Marcus went to have treatment before Mary. When she saw what was happening to Marcus, she decided not to go to the same. It was like a big clinic type, like a volume type practice. But interesting enough, they had the same bites. So top and bottom, Mary was on top, Marcus on the bottom. From the side, it looked the same. Even the finish in terms of just the teeth was not that different. The difference was that when they treated Marcus, they treated his open bite by moving all the upper teeth down. Do you guys know what that does to the teeth when you move all those teeth and you extrude them like 7 millimeters? Would you say?
Gummy.
You got it. So this is what they did to Marcus. So Mary's looking at that. She's like, I'm not going there. And because Mary is way more gummy than Marcus to start with. If that's what Marcus looked like, can you imagine what she would look like? Look how much gummier she is. She had that big open bite, but the difference is we moved her back teeth up, leaving the upper teeth where they are. So again, if you look at the front teeth, they stay kind of there. We move the back teeth up. And it causes the pressure, she was only hitting on her back teeth. So when we move the back teeth up and remove that pressure area, the jaw just rotated, closed. And then you can even see it without her even smiling. Look at the tension in her mentalis strain versus where she is now. No surgery before, and again, those teeth stayed in place compared to where he was. But after he then saw Mary, he did come to us and had a similar treatment, and he's still in treatment, but look at the difference. So he's improving. Again, the consequences of not treating to the face, and that's Smile Architect helps us with that significantly. Finally, I'll talk about not showing enough teeth. So this is me when I was with my wife-to-be in dental school, and I never showed any teeth. My orthodontist was famous, and he was, my mom, because she actually taught at Harvard, so I got to go to the best doctor, supposedly, and he was great at fixing teeth, on models. And that's the way old school was. They didn't even teach this type of stuff. I learned all the stuff from my mom in terms of treating to the face, but we didn't get taught that in orthodontic school. And so he, even though he was a professor, it was all about giving you perfect models. So my teeth looked amazing under my lips, but you could never see them. So eventually I had to treat myself, and extruded my teeth and gave myself a smile. But it was very frustrating growing up, not being able to see my teeth. And you know that as we age, our upper lip comes down 1 millimeter every 10 years, just like the rest of our body. So, sorry about that. But if you don't see, if you have a pediatric patient that is not shown, they're only showing half their teeth when they're 13, and we're not acknowledging that, they're not going to be showing any of their teeth when they're 20s, 30s, 40s. So this is Samantha. She should be showing about 3, 4, even 5 millimeters of incisal display. At rest, she's showing nothing. And her gingival margins, you can see a hint that she might be not showing up is when the anterior gingival margins are higher up than the posterior. That shows you that there's almost like a reverse smile arc situation. So this is where we can bring her to. So first we do the same thing we did with Mike. We put the proportions up there, position the teeth, move the crowns into place, ask her if that's where she likes it. We look at the gingival margins, we bring those down because we don't want them higher than the posterior. So bring those down, bring those teeth, this is just in ortho, just bringing those gingival margins down. And again, it doesn't look good because we're not aligning the incisal edges, we're aligning, improving the gum situation. Widen her. And this is Dr. Traeger's mom, did an amazing job. And look at the difference in her before and after. And so she did a little testimonial for us. Remember, before she showed no teeth, and it's not important necessarily what she says.
Being able to see my teeth.
But look how you can actually see her teeth when she talks.
Or, into this pissy face, but now I'm so happy and I can smile proudly. And
so it does make a difference. It makes you younger. If you see like older newscasters, they're always showing just their lower teeth because of, they don't have incisal display. So if we can take a look at that, even using Smile Architect to improve that, we can definitely improve their, not just how they look now, but how they look in the future. In terms of how to use Smile Architect, you can go right onto the ClinCheck, you can scroll on their help, and then once you do that, you can put in Invisalign. The minute you start typing in SM, it'll show you Smile Architect. You click on there. There's tremendous resources, and we could talk about that later, but there is resources if you guys want to learn how to use this. And again, I'm all for restorative dentists doing Invisalign as long as you guys are training in it and understand what you're doing. I think the more you do Invisalign, the more you understand the capabilities of orthodontics and the more your patients will benefit in the end. So I'm absolutely fine with that. Any questions about anything so far? Yes.
So it looks like when you design it, you can move things in like a transverse, but are there capabilities to move things in an AP, or if it's more of like a class 3 skeletal surgery
Right,
case,
great question.
not really?
That's a different software.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is definitely straight on.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we have desserts or anything to pass on? Oh, they're getting okay. All right, they'll just hand it out. We're blowing through this, so we're gonna get it done early. Don't tell anybody because it's supposed to be 2 hours. Get it done in 1 hour. You still get 2 CE credits as long as you don't say anything.
Keep talking.
What's that? Keep talking. So this is when we're taught in dental school and ortho school. The number one question we had for patients was, first question we're supposed to ask them is, "What's your chief complaint?" And I'm here to tell you that that's not the most important thing to ask a patient, even though it is important to know what their chief complaint is. But here's the thing: patients don't know what is possible. And I'm going to give you an example of a patient that I saw early on in my career, right here in this office. This is Susie. So Susie's I said, "Susie, what's your concern?" Susie said, "I just care about this space right here." But notice how she also has a cant. She's got small boxy teeth. She's got other issues going on. But that's her only concern. So I saw there's some crowding. So, I'm not stupid. So I still aligned everything. And I aligned the bottoms. And I aligned the fronts. And honestly, if you just looked at models, I could probably pass the boards because the boards don't care about the face. And if you looked at Susie from the side, she's fine. But the minute Susie squares up, Susie looked like this. And Susie doesn't know any better. She's a really happy person. She didn't know she could look better. And she's out in the community telling everybody I did her ortho. This was terrible. I saw her at a supermarket one time and she had a friend, or she wanted her friend to meet me. And I tried to run away. She caught me. She's smiling so big. She's so happy. But some cookies coming along, guys. Thank you.
5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this side, you can do that side.
All right, so you guys see that difference? Look at her face. Now, one of the upsetting things for me is Susie, this was early on in our practice. We hardly had any patients, and Susie did not help our marketing. Her going around the community was not good for us. So I thought, my feeling was if we built this office, if you build it, they will come. It's what happens in the movies, right? So we built the office and everything looked good at the time, 3,000 square feet with no patients. So the first year goes by and it didn't go too well. This is our numbers. Unlike you, Dr. Hader, we were not killing it. Right? So negative 70,000. I go home. I got 2 little kids and a wife, and they're like, I'm stressed out. Notice how I had no gray hair yet. They're like, a week later, I had all gray hairs. So I said, well, you know what? We'll build a game room. If you build a game room, they will come. And then we even had an open house, and we invited all 5 of our patients to the open house, one of which was my son. This was our waiting room at 3:00 in the afternoon. This is not typical for an orthodontic office. And so I said to myself, I was like, you know what? I am done just treating patients for their chief complaint. I'm going to tell them what they need. So in comes Julia. And I look at Julia, and I notice, what do you notice about Julia from that profile?
Chin.
Yes, her chin, right? So I'm definitely going to say something. And I'd say to the mom, I was like, Mom, what do you notice about Julia? It's pretty obvious. And Mom's like, she looks beautiful to me. So I'm a little frustrated, so I was like, you see anything else? She's like, no, I don't. So let me help you out. What if I did that? Do you see anything now? She's like, I see a red line, but I don't see anything else. Now I'm getting really frustrated. I was like, well, what if I do this and this and this and this and this? And then she got frustrated and she left. So she actually got upset with me for pointing that out and left the practice. So now I got, I told you before, first year we were negative 70. She would have been like the 6th patient in our practice. We had a horrible second year. I got PNC Bank calling me saying, they're worried about the loan they gave me. So they're like, Dr. Segal, how are the numbers doing? Are they getting bigger? And I was like, oh yeah, they're getting bigger, Greg. They're getting real big. The opposite way. I was in a pinch. So we started doing these seminars, and Dr. Waltzer and Dr. Lassen, and you guys Dr. Hill was, I don't know if you were young back then. I don't think you came that early. No. You're too young. I don't want to put you in our pool. But, and then they got bigger. Dr. Waltzer, there's you in the back. And so we kept talking about interdisciplinary treatment and pushing things along it really changed things as opposed to treating patients with single units, like looking at it holistically. But the one complaint that we had from every attendee was, I understand that they could benefit from interdisciplinary treatment. I still can't convince them to do it. And this is where the value thing comes in. So now when patients come in, Smile Architect has changed that for me. This is a patient that just came recently, just last month. And here's her teeth. The reason she's so upset is because her teeth look like this, and this is what she looks like when she smiles. So we could put that in the restorative, and you can see if we did restorative alone, the gums still look a little uneven. She still looks better, but looks a little flat. So instead, let's put the proportions on there. Now, if we did ortho alone, this is what they spit out. It still doesn't look great. And even if we restored it right there, it still wouldn't be great. So let's move the teeth down and then reposition it, compared to from here to here. I can tell you, when I show this to patients, they literally start tearing up in the chair. So, she looks like a completely different person, as opposed to showing her a wax setup. This does not move the needle. So this has allowed us, when we do big cases, we'll talk about, it's definitely allowed us to spend more family time. And Frank Spear talks about this, that when you do interdisciplinary treatment, the amount of time that you spend with one patient doing 12, let's say, fee-for-service units, you can do that in 2 appointments, 10 hours of time. That would take you to produce the same amount for single units, would be 36 patients, 72 appointments, and 72 hours of time. He proves that in his course, and it's amazing, how much more productive not only you can be. It's not just a financial thing, because I don't use it necessarily to make more money. I probably would make the same amount of money. I just work less. And that allows me to spend more time with my family. So when I've been there for my son when he was, 7 years old, started wrestling with the big boys. And this was his first tournament back when he was 7. And this is just him a month ago, getting committed to college. So I was there with him every step of the way. For my daughter, dancing since she was 3. Everywhere anything she did, it was always dance involved. And now she's in college dancing. So it's definitely doing interdisciplinary treatment. I feel it's the same. I mean, you guys let me know, is it not the same thing in restorative? If you're doing more involved cases, not only, by the way, the best part about it is not the money that you're making, it's the lives that you're changing. And I'll show you what I mean by this case. The lives that you change when you do interdisciplinary treatment is, I mean, those are things that you're going to always remember more so than any amount of money you've ever made. And the ones that you don't, the lives you don't change, I have those where I could have done better. Like those are the ones that keep you up at night. So we're going to finish with Cassidy. Cassidy is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. She works with disabled children. She's like just the sweetest person I've ever met. And Cassidy was getting married in 2 years. So she said to me, she's like, I'm getting married. I hate my smile. I never smile. I want to look beautiful at my wedding. And the dentist referred her over to just have her upper, just wanted me to diverge the roots for implants in her upper lateral area. And I told him, I was like, I could diverge those roots as much as you want. She's still not going to look good. She needs more involved treatment. And, he said to me, she doesn't want to have her jaw broken. That's a common thing. Who wants to have her jaw broken? And by the way, I think that's what I used during that first patient that I showed you that ended up horrible. I probably told her that she had a camp, but I was like, you don't want to have your jaw broken, dude. She's like, no. I was like, okay, then, let's not do that. That is right. That is a common thing. Nobody wants to have a jaw broken, but this is where the software helps you demonstrate value. So I never tell a patient, see guys, I never tell a patient what they need. I tell them what is possible and let them decide. All right, so I should say I never tell them what to do. I tell them what's possible. So here's her, you can see her jaw's growing down. She's got a severe open bite. What's gonna happen to that open bite when I close it? If I don't do it the right way, just gonna get even gummier, right? So let's show her in the Smile Architect. So if I move those teeth down to close the open bite and I add teeth, it's still not gonna look great. On the other hand, if I move everything up with a surgery and we move everything up and then restore it, it's going to look better than if we did it the opposite way. So she gets it. Look at the difference. If you want to look gorgeous at your wedding, you need to have that procedure. Okay? So she did. And if you look at the upper left box, the maxilla was impacted. See how it was moved up? And then the lower jaw auto-rotated forward. She had bridges down because she actually didn't have the bone, unfortunately, for implants. So these are temps bridges. Close her down. I'm going to give a drum roll for the result. So she went from here to here. And she sent us photos from her wedding. She got done 1 week before her wedding.
Oh my gosh.
And she sent us photos from her honeymoon. She was texting me on her honeymoon. Her husband was like, who is this guy? But she's so happy. You can see she's smiling ear to ear. And before she never would have allowed a profile photo. So she had a little bit more done too there. But people don't really know what they want. This is my point about the chief complaint. They don't really know what they want, and if they do, they have a hard time articulating what they truly desire until you ask them the right questions. Are we asking our patients all the right questions? Instead of, what would you like? Maybe we should be asking, would you like me to show you what is possible? So that when they look in the mirror, they see transformations, not just us looking in a mirror through our lens and just looking at their teeth. And when you do that, you're going to have very happy patients. Her son was the one getting the treatment. That's the funny part. Thank you, guys. Whoever has enough, thank you. This is the QR code if you haven't gotten your C credits, but I think most people did.
Yeah, please make sure that you register using the QR code. You also sign in on the sign-in sheet if you want the C credits.
So you said for those extra three, so does this come with every, because we were like, do we have it at our office?
So everybody has it. You just have to
Use it.
get the ClinCheck and then submit it under Smile Architect.
Okay.
Yeah, and Ken can talk to you like how to get that going. Yeah,
It won't be available unless you have a wide smile.
you got to get it right. If you
The
have to
wild
get the
smile
wide
photo.
smile photo with
Okay.
your cell phone. Thank you, Dr. Hill. Yeah.
Photo. Is that in the book, the pamphlet? This?
I don't know, Ken, is it?
I don't believe so. One of the things you can do is, on the doctor's site, there's educational resources. That's a really good place to start, to learn about it. And the software, it's kind of like the, whatever it is you're doing the practice, like dental implants, there's like kind of a step-by-step procedure of how to do it, right? And then there's real dentistry, right? And so I recommend doing the basics first, learning that's kind of essential, and then you can get into the technicality.
I'm a hygienist, but they work with the doctors
Okay,
and they,
okay.
so that's why I was like, are you
Okay,
listening?
okay.
So, okay, cool. Our doctor could be the same.
Yeah, we can come in and talk through that.
Or Springdale. I think I might have seen him there. Springdale Family Dental, Dr. Harry
That's a
Gilbert.
big deal.
No, that was a really good
That's
presentation.
pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I was gonna ask you about the photo. So you're having
Okay.
to smile and then saying, okay, show me your smile big. Like, what is the word that you guys use to get that smile?
yeah, that's right. We just say, give me a big smile.
Give me
That's
a
all
smile,
we
that's
say.
it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and sometimes like the key is not to be holding the camera there while they're like focusing. You want to be focused, ready to go, and then you're like,
As soon as they hit it, boom.
boom. Yeah, exactly.
And then are you guys using the Invisalign like app on the phone to take these photos, or you're just taking a regular camera?
Regular camera. Yeah.
And then just uploading it later.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Regular like iPhone. Like
Sure.
Yeah.
What's your workflow? Because we're talking about consultation. The patient comes in, gets the scan, gets the photos, gets the X-rays. You meet and greet, but you don't have the smile to show them yet.
Right.
So they go and then come back.
Yeah, they'll come back. Yeah, they'll come back. I know. But you can start. I mean,
So I feel like we like see them do it, and then it's like commit right there and then because
Yeah.
once they walk out, it might be
Right.
hard to get them
Good
back.
question. So, I mean, for the complications, like the other case, we usually do start, and I'll show them after, like where, because they'll usually start with us, and I use it to convince them to do restorative after. A lot of times they start with us, they're not 100% sold on the restorative.
Yeah. But
So
you'll get them there.
I get them going through the design, and then
Show them the
show them the restorative. Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah. That's a great point. 'Cause I do want them signing before they go.
Right. Because then like they go home and then like the AC breaks down.
Thank you so much. You made it. No, I'm saying you made it in there. Oh, you made my presentation.
You gotta close right there.
Yeah, exactly. You know what happens? Great to see it. Yeah, that would be awesome. Hi, Shay. See you. Are you, wait, who's this? Mark Ruggieri. Oh, yeah.
Nice meeting you.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thanks for coming. Thank you. No, thanks for coming. Keep that good work coming. Yeah, thank you.
Our first one is in Marlton, the second one is in Morgantown. Where's the one in Marlton? It's like right off of Route 70 in the Medical Plaza. If you've like, yeah, we're right in there, all the way in the back.
Okay, yeah, and now you're doing mortgage.
Thanks for coming, Paul. Great to see you.
We opened 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're both up and running. I'm only there like a day and a half.
3 by 3.
No, so I have an associate 4 days a week there, and then 4 days a week at home. And then I do like a day and a half in Morgantown for like Invisalign. It's Dr. Rizvi. She lives in Freehold. She's not from around here. I know another Dr. Rizvi. Yeah. So she's not related to. No, she doesn't. Not related to her, so it was like it worked out.
How is she?
Yeah. Like through marriage, but yeah, they were moving down. So her husband was an ophthalmologist, a guy. He took a job in Freehold. He was finishing his fellowship in Boston at FAU, and then he was like moving down. And I said, I was talking to the wife. I was like, you're gonna probably need a job. Like, where you want to work? Do you want to own together? She said, no. Do you want to work for me? I'll buy the practice. So then we opened up, and she's kind of like the main clinician there, and then it kind of works out. She doesn't do a lot of implants. She doesn't do implants. She doesn't do stock preservation, no grafting, and I can do a lot of that. So,
And how long have you been in your office?
2 years.
And you were pregnant when you came to our office.
Yes, can you imagine?
How old is that baby now?
Dr. Walker.
I have an 18-year-old. Yeah, 18, 15 and 13.
I don't know. You got frozen.
Of course, of course. I mean, I see them all the time. They come to our office all the time. Now it's all changing, right?
That's true.
So serious.
I've only been there 37 years.
You would only know. What should I do? Is Dr. Trivedi there? Okay. I'm friends with her, so I could even write, should I write a specific doctor's name or no? If I refer to you guys.
Dr. Rosen is cutting out 4 days a week. They had 4 days a week.
How many new doctors?
That's why I left.
I invented this thing called a name tag. Who are you? What are you doing here?
You're kidding.
Them too. It was awesome meeting you. Good luck with everything. Lauren, Draker. Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
The
nice
whole
to
vibe
meet you.
changes, the whole vibe. What can you tell?
I was just going
Yeah.
I don't do this. This is not what I do. They make fun of me.
But yeah, that's why, that's why. That's what I like Masaki to Vicar and all that.
They laugh
Like,
at
they didn't have
me.
long time.
You guys know Dr. Iyer?
Hi. You guys will all work together.
Yes,
Nice
we
to
do.
meet you.
Yes,
Nice to meet
yes.
you.
That's
We've
Bonnie,
worked
this is
so
Rachel.
much with your office.
Yeah, we do.
So much. And
You know, we were talking about this when we came in. You know who loved you guys? Dr. Lirio.
Dr. Who?
Lirio.
Lirio. He's not there anymore?
Oh, he left about 15 years ago.
Isn't he in Florida?
I haven't worked with him. Hold on. What was his first name?
Apollo.
Yes.
Apollo. Apollonia.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, he had 2 little boys when they left. They went to Florida.
Now that you say all that, now I remember. Yeah.
His son Jake
I
is
used to
in
work with him a
college.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apollo.
Apollo.
I don't remember Lirio. I remember Apollo.
You know, they say that memory is the second thing to go.
Yeah.
What's the first, Gail?
What
I
is?
can't remember.
Why don't you write? What's your last name? You're on our thing.
I did. I signed in right after Bonnie
I'll
Smith.
tell him about it. Go ahead. Go home.
Thank you. It was lovely.
I'll tell him.
Or like, it's a possibility, but you gotta seek attention. But if you tell people like, yes, we're gonna do this, yep, you're the future, and then the future is a private equity, you gotta just tell them.
It's OS is all over. Like I went to school Boston. I lived in Boston for a long time. I mean, I came over from Chad, my cousin, but like I wanted to stay in Boston. I interviewed a lot, and I talked to a bunch of people that were at the practices I was interviewing at, and they were like, they promised me a partnership, they screwed me over, and then
It's kind of the story, like the age-old story.
and like I have a friend in Bergen, and the office said he was going to partner in, and now they're starting their own like CFO, CEO, and it's just like it happens. You just either have to get in at the right time and get a piece before they sell, but it's everywhere.
Oh, yeah, and in a way, it's fine, like you kind of get that.
The
You get that harsh
honesty
reality, and
is
then you're like, that's what motivates you. I'm gonna go do my own thing. So it was probably the right thing. And it's been great. Yeah, it's been. I mean, you know, it comes with a whole bunch of challenges and whatnot. But like we have in Marlton right now, we have really good staff, very well staffed. So everything's stable, it's fine. And I'm always like,
Yeah.
And Bordertown is like a brand new project, so there's like it's a lot of like TLC and just kind of like.
I'm from here.
Okay. Driving up.